Now, I'll be honest with you. Something that I love almost as much as talking about politics is something I never get a chance to talk about on television, which is professional wrestling. But the two come together in a point that I will make about Jim Chalmers. Now, Jim Chalmers right now, of course, cock of the walk, how good's this? I'm the guy in charge. I'm still technically the shadow treasurer with my rhetoric, but I'm actually in charge. How good's this? Everyone's looking at me. And there was this bizarre broadcast decision made by someone somewhere, I don't know who it was, which was to have a live camera of the great victor that is Jim Chalmers walking his way from his office with his beautiful family. No comment about them. God love them. But here he is walking like a victor. The countdown is on. It was like a great entrance that was being made like Rocky Balboa into the ring. And it reminded me of a legendary moment in professional wrestling when the WCW World Champion Goldberg did exactly the same thing. When he, surrounded by guards, walked through the corridors of the arena before eventually making his way towards the ring, all of which was building the tension, building the hype. So just because Jim Chalmers would be watching for more tips about how to do things better, because we know he sits there with notes on this program, here is Jim Chalmers being Goldberg last night in Canberra. And just like professional wrestling, he's a fake. Now, let's get to, again, the budget that was delivered last night. Now, as we were able to work out within a couple of minutes, and it's been fun to watch the reality set in versus the spin of the past 24 hours, we were exactly right in our hot take last night. The reality is, despite everything else, you don't need an economics degree to understand that this budget says inflation goes up. Real wages go down. So your capacity to pay for things goes backwards. Power bills are going to go up, as you know, by 50% in the next 2 years, and 140,000 people will lose their job in the next year. What a magnificent start to a Labor government. Well, according to most of the media.
Labor says its first budget is focused on responsible economic management.
What makes a respectable budget? Did Chalmers clear that hurdle today?
I think he did, Sarah.
Being responsible with the economy. Do you think they've found that sweet spot in this budget?
Good evening, Gemma. Well, they've tried to. There's certainly some good news there.
But as you know, inflation is through the roof. And today, just one day after the budget, the entire predictions that have set the tone for the next few years all blow away. Because inflation right now is at 7.3%. You know how serious this is. You know how this works. Where the predictions that were in the budget last night told us that it would have a 7 in front of it this year and then magically halve next year. Well, of course, when power prices are going to go up by 50%, when real wages go backwards, then inflation is going to continue to rise. They couldn't admit that, though, because then all of the spending that they baked into the budget, and they spent exactly the same as the previous government, they just moved $1 here and spent $1.05 there, meant that all of their numbers are out. They're all out after one day because inflation will not halve in the next 12 months. There is no one in the Western world, apart from Treasury in Canberra and the Goldberg, and that's giving him too much credit. So he believes that it will halve in the next 12 months. It's not going to happen. And that inflation rate, by the way, you know it feels high. Well, of course, it's because it's the highest since 1990. Now, I've talked about it ad infinitum to the point where I probably bore myself. But as they say, when you start getting bored of talking about it is when people start listening. And inflation, you know, is the problem. Now, just in case people think, oh, no, it's all about Putin's war in Ukraine. Just work out how many of Putin's war in Ukraine have to do with these things, because this is everything compared to 12 months ago. If you're buying and building a new house, it's up 20%. Vegetables, up 17%. Gas, up 16%. Milk, up 16%. Fruit, up 14%. Cereal, up 13%. Vehicle spare parts, Pretty sure they don't all come from the Ukraine, but up 11%. Domestic travel, travelling within your own country is more expensive. Eggs are more expensive. Small appliances are more expensive. Drinks, bar alcohol, more expensive. Poultry, more expensive. Fast food, more expensive. Going to the vet is more expensive, and even buying tools is more expensive. But again, enough about Jim Chalmers. For their part, the opposition know this is what this government will be judged on in 3 years' time.
On the 30th of April this year, the Prime Minister said Australians would be, and I quote, better off under a Labor government. The budget confirms that a typical family will be $2,000 worse off by Christmas, with inflation, the tax burden, power prices and unemployment all forecast to go up under your budget. Can the Prime Minister explain how a $2,000 hit to family budgets makes Australians better off?
For his position, Albo doesn't care. He's got the big job. The media will do a protection racket and keep him there for as long as they possibly can. So he can play Taylor Swift all he likes in his DJ Albo mode.
What last night's responsible budget handed down by the Treasurer did was to have fiscal policy work in partnership with monetary policy rather than against it.
He also turned around and said to Peter Dutton today, "Why are you being so negative?" As if he hadn't been for the past 3 years. How would this government have reacted if the former government had done this budget, where 150,000 people lose their job, power bills go up by 50% in the next 2 years, wages go backwards, and inflation is at a level it hasn't been at since 1990? Remember when no child would live in poverty? Well, that's back where inflation is right now, as interest rates will continue to rise. This ain't a joke and it ain't politics. It's real life, and real life people are hurting. But of course, the commentator-in-chief pretends that he plays no role in this whatsoever. Today, saying that he's going to slay the inflation dragon.
Inflation is public enemy number one. Inflation is the dragon we need to slay.
No, Jim, the dragon Australia needs to slay is government spending. You're the dragon that they need to slay. Your government is the dragon it needs to slay. Your government's decisions when it comes to backing every union wage claim will push up inflation. Your government made decisions about renewable energy that push up power prices. Albo, Chalmers, Wong and the rest of them, you are the dragons we need to slay.